Hi friend, I'm Marcus Lapp here with SpeakYourMindMethod.com. So one of my favorite tools that I teach my students is what I've nicknamed the hammer. What is the hammer tool? Well, in simple terms, it's this. As soon as you can sense that you're gonna block on the next word, or even as you're starting to block or stutter on that word, you stop and then you restart the phrase. That's the simplified version of that's what the hammer tool is. You don't push through the block and just say, to hell with it, here we go, just push through it. No, you stop and you restart and you give yourself another chance. Now, how many of you guys notice that this is exactly what I did when I started this video? One of my favorite tools. Now, just like any other tool or trick or technique, you're probably not going to overcome stuttering just from this one thing. What you need to do that is a larger system, a larger plan in place, and that's what I help people with here at Speak Your Mind Method. But the vast majority of people who stutter, and this was me, this was a really good tool that helped me overcome my stutter. This is one of the favorite of my clients as well, is this tool of where you don't push through the blocks over and over again. Instead, you stop yourself and you restart the phrase. Now, a question that we could answer here is, why does the hammer tool work? Like, what is its value? Well, one of the reasons the hammer tool is so powerful is because it simply grants you another chance. And on the second try, when you have that new opportunity and you hit a block and then it gives you that chance to restart, what it also does is it buys you some time to then, perhaps you were being a bit sloppy with your articulation or your speed and you were kind of just haphazard and then you hit a block. When you hit stop and you restart, it wakes you up and you're like, okay, I was being a bit sloppy maybe. Let me go into a more flowing sort of way as I try to say this again. And another reason that the hammer tool is so useful is that it reduces the number of strong, emotionally painful blocks that you experience. I'm not saying it eradicates them. You might feel like you have the exact same problem. Even if you stop and restart, you feel like you're going to stutter on that word again anyway. Again, this is not a cure-all. This is not, you need more than just this, but this is part of the system. And you want to reduce, any way that we can reduce those really strong blocks and those strong stutters is a win, because that means we're cutting down on the worst of the memories that we have when it comes to our speech. And what the hammer tool, the stop and restart tool, really defends against, and this might take the cake here in terms of why it's so useful, and you probably can relate to this if you stutter, where there's this thing that I've nicknamed the to hell with it impulse, where you can sense that, or there's this upcoming word, you're about to say it, you can tell you're going to block on it, and you just take this approach of just to hell with it. I'm no alternatives. I'm just going to power through. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to make this work. It's what I call the to hell with it impulse. And that's kind of like an NFL quarterback. Just every play, he drops back and throws a Hail Mary as far as he can to try to get a touchdown on every play. It's like, that's not going to work very well. And it's the same with our speech. We don't want to just power through with no adapting and no strategy and no alternate routes available. We want to have those alternate routes available. And we need to be more strategic with our approach than just this throwing in the towel, or not throwing in the towel, but just this to hell with it. I'm just going to barrel through. I'm going to just contort my body and do everything I can just to get that word out. We want to break that habit and we want to replace it with something better. And one of the ways that we do that is by really getting good at implementing this hammer tool, where as soon as you hit a block or right before, you don't push through it. You don't say to hell with it. Instead, you stop, you restart, and you give yourself a second chance. Now, I understand that sometimes it feels riskier to hit restart. Sometimes it feels like if you, because it feels like it's going to take longer to say it, which then feels like there's going to be even more stress and even more pressure. And so you're just like, I'm going to push through it. I'm going to find a way, even if I stutter. And so I understand that sometimes it feels like that would be a riskier move than just powering through. But the reality is, it's not a riskier move because, especially when you're in those moments where you can just tell you're gonna block or you're gonna stutter, you wanna find a way. So even if you do stutter after you use the hammer tool, at least you switched your approach and you tried something instead of it being a sure thing stutter. You gave yourself another road that you could take. And it gives you that extra chance, as we've been talking about, to maybe have a more positive speech memory there, to where maybe there's still some blocking and stuttering, but because you restarted and then you perhaps slowed down or maybe articulated or stretched it out a little bit, or maybe created the word linking effect, or which is a version of what I call the passive exhale, where you don't allow the words to be, choppy. You don't do that. Instead, you have this sense or this feeling of the airflow is never completely stopping. And so it gives you that extra chance when you restart the phrase to implement those other tools like word stretching, like over articulation, like the passive exhale or word linking. And when you have that extra chance, there's just a higher chance that you'll be able to get through it with less pain, less of a stuttering memory, and just more comfort. And so we need to take the wins we can get, and we need to get them however we can get them. And this is one of the ways that we do that. This is why tools are powerful. Again, one more time, this is not going to cure everything by just one tool, but this is part of your plan, and it should be part of your plan. Now, one more thing that I want to bring you on the inside of is, how do you practice this? And I talk about this in my free workshop, which you can find that in the link in the description, where I have a more full plan. But I'll just give you a quick tip here about how I want you to practice this. It's very, very easy, although it might be a little bit difficult at first. So again, as I did last week, I just have this book laying here. It's called How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big, kind of the story of my life by Scott Adams. It is a really good read. And so when you're practicing the hammer tool with the book, it would go like this. This is the same reasoning for why you should avoid exposure to too much news. Realistically, the last advice you want to hear. One more example. If you're experiencing genuine misfortune, and on and on and on. So as you can see, I am intentionally stopping and restarting the phrases. Why am I doing that? Well, it's because we need to get our brains comfortable with this movement, with this change, because your brain's going to resist, and your brain does not want to read like that. And so this is how you start to build that comfort around this tool. It all starts with you alone, by yourself. Grab a book and start reading aloud with that hammer tool. You start the phrase and then you put in an artificial stop and you go back and restart. What we're doing here is we are using the tools when we don't need them so that we can access the tools when we do need them. We can't just send it and say, oh, here's a tool, the hammer tool, stop and restart. Never practice it on your own and then expect to be able to access those things when we're speaking in more stressful situations or just with other people. It's going to be way harder to implement that if you don't have that practice time as your foundation. So you need to get the practice in, and the best place to get started is going to be the Stop Stuttering workshop. I talk about the hammer tool in the workshop, as well as some other very core tools that you should learn. And even beyond that, you get a system, you get a plan, a daily routine, and it's 100% free. It's my Stop Stuttering workshop. I'll leave a link in the description below, so be sure to go check that out before you leave. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.